To finish this off, let's bring it in, everybody. To finish this off, I now want to apply the same sort of principle and logic to the warped surface, or the curved surfaces in this case. And it's actually remarkably simple. The only thing that I need to change here is I need to change the orientation of where I've moved the centroid. And then everything else is the same. So real quickly, down here, I am going to, let's see, I'll start from the deconstruct brep, and I can primarily keep everything exactly the same. So I'm just going to delete this stuff. And I've got...
Wait, what'd you delete?
Sorry, so I deleted everything after the deconstruct brep here.
Okay.
So all I've done here is I referenced the surface in, I subdivided it, and I deconstructed it into its parts. Okay, so I'm going to replug everything in from what I have up here. And this is what's going to change. So let me organize this real quick. Well, yeah. Actually, rather than...
Just copy the whole thing.
Yeah, so I think what's going to make more sense here is to move this aside, and I'm going to copy the whole thing down. And instead of... So this deconstruct brep is what I'm going to keep. And luckily, the only thing that's being plugged into it is this square grid. So I can get rid of that. I can get rid of the grid size. I'll pull this back.
So delete everything before the deconstruct brep?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So this is where I'm making my connection between the two. Okay, so right now I have all the same stuff, and I'm just going to replace this deconstruct brep with the deconstruct brep of, you know, the one next to it. So plug that in, and here you can see it's trying to make the connection, but it's not quite right yet. Okay, there are some errors. Yeah, we'll get there though. So cleaning up that backside, I'm going to move some of my mathematical operators out of the way. So again, we haven't really done much yet. So I'm going to move this back here and get that out of the way. And I'm going to look at my centroids, the move command, well, yeah, and the frame depth is what I need. Okay, so I've got my frame depth coming in. It's the same depth as the one to the left. My centroids and move. So everything that move is plugged into is going to stay the same. Right now it's in an error. We've got the surface grid from points. Well, actually that might have to change too. How do I want to do that? I'll consider that for a while, but let's get the centroid in the right position first. Right, so I turned my preview on for move, and I'm going to change the move from unit Z to something else. So now they're kind of jumping up at me at the top. I need to find the surface normal and then move it along the direction of the surface normal, which is a vector. So under surface, I go to analysis, and I drop in evaluate surface, and I drop in surface closest point. And let's take a look at the two here. So we've got two that are going to communicate in their points here. We've got the UV points and then UV coordinates for points for evaluate surface. We need the sample point and the base surface. So the base surface for us is going to be these faces. And the sample point is going to be the original centroid. That's those. So let me kind of pull this back and get it out of the way for us, so you can see what's going on. All right. Yeah, I'll move that down. That's confusing, so I'll just put that over there. So again, we're trying to work our way toward move. Actually, do I have this backwards? Really quickly, it's been a little bit now since I've done this, a week, so I'm going to save this file. You guys should save too. And I'm going to go back to my other file and refer to it to see exactly how I set this up. So this is why I never delete anything, right? Because you never know. Oh, I don't want to save that yet. Did I crash? Did I close? Uh-oh. Weird. Hold on. Okay, so I'm going into an older file here for saddle patterning, and I'm looking at the way I set this up. So in reference here, I've got my surface closest point set up. Yeah, I've got my sample point, I've got the surface, and I plugged in the UV into the UV of evaluate surface, and then I reference back to the original surface with evaluate surface. And that gives me my normal, which I can then use. So back into my other file, the UV point goes into UV. I borrow the original surfaces there, and you can see it's already setting up my grid. And that gives me normals, which are a vector, which I can move my points along. So I'll move those. All right, so this is how I'm going to show you something here. So the way that it's working is it evaluated my normals as the positive side being down, and I know that there's a way to figure out why that is, but I haven't done that, so I don't really know. But what we can do is actually invert the value of it. I wonder if that works. Yeah. So here's just another little tip for you guys. If you have what I did real quick, if you have your normals on one side of a surface and you want to invert it to the outside, you can add this reverse, and I just double clicked and I went to reverse, but it's also under vector, and it should be under vector. Yeah, it's under vector vector. And then it will move to the outside. So I'm going to slide this back again, and I'm going to change the amplitude of this, or you can go back to the frame depth and change it there. Well, no. Frame depth is giving me -3. Well, I might plug that in later, but for now I'm just going to work with amplitude. So I'll go to vector amplitude, plug that in, and then give myself a slider, 0 less than 20. I don't know what it's going to be. And then you can increase the depth of your frame. This is really extreme, but yes.
You're
All
just way ahead.
Okay, great, thank you. So I'll simplify here on the on the video for you guys. But what I've done, you might have gotten stuck replugging this in, but this is exactly the same, and all I did was plug it in to the existing setup, where this was. Okay, outside of that, if you look at the old version, the only thing I changed here was what's happening in between the deconstruct brep and the move, which really is just, this centroid is actually still there. I changed this whole chord. That's it. That's all I'm modifying right now. The relationship between the centroid and move. And what that looks like is, here's my centroid, here's my move, and here's everything that I added. And these things that I added, all it did was looked at where the centroid was on the surface, found the normal of its orientation to the surface, and then the reverse, I just flipped it so that it went outside.
Is it supposed to go outside?
It doesn't really matter. I flipped it on the outside because my subdivisions are better to visualize on the outside. If you increase your subdivisions, it'll work better on the inside.
So technically we could just skip over the reverse and go straight to equity?
You can, yeah. You don't have to. I just added that in because I wanted them on the outside like this.
It's like a star.
Okay, and then I increased the depth. Rather than changing the depth here, I decided, for now, I'm going to manually just increase the depth, and I'll worry about plugging it in to an automated value later.
No changes.
Okay, so I'm going to leave this plugged in for you. This is... so that's how you find your normals, and then you plug that back in to the vector of move. And right now, that's it. That's all I changed. So rather than really freaking you guys out with a bunch of like data point type stuff, I'm going to leave this link. I'm going to leave this link broken for now, and we'll call it a night because it is getting late. I can see you guys are getting tired and frustrated because I'm moving really fast. But just know that what you accomplished here with this right now is actually really advanced stuff. So you're doing really well, and I'm really proud of you guys for that. So I'll leave this screen up so that you guys can start to plug it in, and I'll work with you individually if you need to work outside of this screen. Okay? Questions? Yes?
For surface grid, what is U plugged into?
Surface grid? Surface grid.
Surface grid. What is that called?
This?
Surface from points, yeah.
Oh, so the U right now, this one is broken, but on the original one up here, the U is plugged into the grid count X. It actually could be X or Y.
Okay.
All it's saying is that for your family of that many points, that I should be, well, the U value. I think that has to do with its location in the Z-axis. And so I think it has to do with, like, if it's a warped surface, how accurate is it going to be to the warp? Or something like that. I could be wrong. But I do know that using the exact same number of points in the U direction as you have subdivisions is what you want. All right, I'll leave that up.